Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Newburyport Community Preservation Committee. Like first item, we need to take attendance, and I'll call your name and you can indicate your presence or not. Chuck Griffin.
Present.
Paul Healy.
Here.
Jane Healy.
Here.
Don Little.
Here.
Joe Morgan.
Here.
Tom O'Brien. Tom did indicate that they would not be able to attend. Mark Rosen.
Here.
Don Walters.
Here.
And the chair is present. Joe Morgan, welcome as a new member. I'd like to reach out to you, Joe, and you can contact me directly after the meeting, or Jane, and we can discuss anything you'd like to discuss or provide resource information for you to get you more fully acquainted with the workings of the CPC.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay. All right. So welcome back for another year, guys. We've got a rich, full schedule, a dozen, well, presently 11, possibly a dozen applications to consider. In order to lead us through this process, we need, as our first item of business, to have an election of the chair and vice chair. I will open the floor for nominations.
Mike, this is Don Walters. If okay with you and Jane, I'd like to reappoint you both a chair and vice chair respectively, if both of you are okay with that.
We are, and thank you. Is there a second to that?
This is Paul. I'll second that.
Okay, Paul, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that Jane and I continue in as our offices as chair and vice chair respectively. I'll do a roll call since all our votes will have to be roll call these days. Chuck Griffin.
Yes.
Paul Healy.
Yes.
Don Little.
Yes.
Joe Morgan.
Yes.
Mark Rosen.
Yes.
Don Walters.
Yes.
Jane, do you accept?
I do. Thank you.
And so do I. Okay. Thank you, gang. Proceeding. There is a letter in the packet from the Parks Department regarding the Bartlett Trees Specimen Tree Grant. Caitlin, is there any need to discuss this further at this meeting, or can we all just receive and file it and review it?
We do have Lisa Reed, Parks Director, present tonight. Perhaps she wants to
Oh,
give
that's right.
a minute or
That's right.
two
Okay.
overview of what she's looking for from you.
Okay, and my apologies, Lisa, I forgot about that. Ms. Reed will speak to this item.
Hi, Lisa. I
Please.
can see you, but you
All right,
might need
okay.
to. There you go.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me tonight. I'll just put it in front of you, and then there's no rush in approving this. So I thought it would be useful for me to be here tonight, but I'm not asking for any action to be taken on this immediately. You granted us $11,760 in 2019 to plant 10 trees. the planting was delayed primarily because of COVID. And then we just this fall planted the 10 trees for much less than we thought we were going to need. And that was because the inventory that was available at the nurseries and our growers was much smaller than we expected. We would normally plant larger trees just for the sake of establishment and because they'll make a bigger impact going in. But we took what was available, and we have just over $7,700 left, and we would like to be able to spend that on more trees. We have 46 more trees that need to be planted at the MAL according to the Parks Commission's planting plan. And we would appreciate it if the commission would consider letting us use the balance to purchase those trees. We can't predict at this point how many trees we'll be able to buy. I mean, if the prices continued, if we were only able to buy $400 trees, then, we'd be able to buy up to 19 trees for the money that's left. But again, we would prefer to buy larger trees. So I guess at this point, I would just welcome any questions if you have any.
I have a question, Liz. What would be if you use the money to purchase more trees, what's your anticipated schedule for purchase and planting?
Well, we also have some removals that would have to happen in order to plant some of the trees. I know that we would plant some this spring. I doubt we would be able to get them all planted. So I would say, to be safe, I'd give it a year to get them all planted. But that said, I'm guessing we could get them all done by the end of next fall 22.
I can't see hands raised, so just wade in and be patient if you have any other questions from the committee. Not hearing any other questions, I would like to hear your thoughts on dealing with this tonight. Get a motion on the floor and deal with it one way or the other tonight.
This is Paul. Somehow I think that maybe we should defer it to another meeting and just make sure that if there's any issue with us approving this kind of change that's a little bit different than what the city council had expected, and I'm just not sure how that goes.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, well, thank you, Lise, and we will receive this and plan on discussing it at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mike,
Caitlin, yes.
I apologize. I tried to jump in there, but I was muted and anyway, so what Paul just said, I agree with, but don't we need to make a motion on some action that would happen before the next meeting?
I'm not sure what you mean.
He's recommending that we need to check in with the city council because of the expectations of the original proposal, and how and when is that going to happen?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I didn't hear you say that we needed to do a outreach to city council, but merely make that as part of our discussion in considering whether the change is minor enough so that we, as we have in the past, to deal with it at committee level rather than having it reviewed by city council.
Exactly. I don't think that we have to reach out and get their prior approval, but it's just something that we should keep in mind. That they may have a different feeling.
So
Then I don't
that may,
Then I don't
that may be
understand why,
part of,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I don't
Mark.
understand why we have to defer it till the next meeting if that's the case. Why could not we have proceeded with approving it tonight, thinking that it would be fine with the city council?
I'm not sure I've considered in detail, and I don't know if anybody else is on the same page as I am here, in detail, comparing this request with the original appropriation that was approved.
She's not asking
basic-
for, she's not asking for any more money though, correct?
No, that's correct. It's a matter of probably
So the-
number of trees.
Right. And so who would decide that that would be okay or not?
In the first instance, it would be us.
And why
And
can't
then
we
if,
decide
and then
that?
if,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, and then if if we had doubts about that, a motion to approve wouldn't pass. And then we'd have to decide on what action to take to get the feedback we need from city council.
So all I'm hearing then is that we need to think about it until the next meeting?
I think that's correct, yeah.
Well, all right. Okay. I mean, I'm not, if somebody said, I was going to do particular research to find out if it's appropriate or not, but I don't know what, I don't see any action that's going to happen per se between now and the next meeting. And it's, time is always of the essence. So I'm not going to make any motions. I'll just, I'll be done with my comments now.
Anyone else? Any more on this?
Mike, this is Don, and perhaps this was your thought, but and again, I don't think it's probably they had time to think about it with Caitlin or the planning department, but I know in some other committees and boards, they always look to the staff for some type of recommendation, and perhaps you and Caitlin could discuss this if you think appropriate. Just a suggestion, whatever you guys prefer.
Okay, good suggestion. Thanks, Joe. Anybody else? Okay, moving down to 1D, overview of the process. It'll be, just like we have done in the past, with the possibility, based upon a later discussion we'll have tonight, of a little more acceleration in the process, of scheduling reviews of for 2 different meetings, reviewing 5 or 6 applications at each meeting, and inviting the applicants to come and answer questions and give short presentations. After we've heard from everybody, we would schedule, or we will have scheduled, a 3rd deliberation meeting where we deliberate the whole docket as to which projects we wish to recommend and in what amounts. Okay. The late file for the Open Space Reserve Fund is next item. And I will be recusing myself from discussion and voting on it because I am the fault that it is late. I am the author with another Open Space Committee member of the application, and feel that it would be best if I not participate in your discussions and decisions on whether this is accepted as a late file. So Jane, if you could pick up the discussion of this.
I have to apologize. I'm out in the middle of woods in Maine and I'm having a hard time following all of this. Did you ask me for a motion for the late file for the open space?
No, just I'm not going to be participating. And so if you could just act as the ringleader and get the discussion, get a motion, and have a vote.
Okay, I really have to, I don't even have the agenda in front of me, so I'm really sorry, but I'm having a
Oh,
very.
that's all right. That's all right. Okay.
Um,
Caitlin, how about if you've got everything in front of you?
Okay,
How about
sure.
if you just administratively push this through the process?
Sure. So we had a late file application submitted by the Open Space Committee under the category of open space for $100,000. We've added it here to the list of applications received, but you can see, it's in a different color because it has been submitted late. And so I think that the Open Space Committee would be looking for your vote to accept this as a late file, to consider it during your review process during this grant cycle.
I'll make a motion to accept it as a late file.
I
I
second
second.
the motion.
I'll take it over. Is there any, what do we do? Is ask for discussion?
Mhm.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd say the motion passes. Do we do a roll call or?
Yes, please. This is Caitlin. Yes.
And I have to apologize. Caitlin, could you run the names because I don't know who's on the call?
Sure, I'll run through it as I see it here on the list. Charles Griffin,
Yes,
Don Walters,
Yes,
Jane Healy,
Yes.
Mark Rosen,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
Yes,
Don Little,
Yes,
Joe Morgan, Joe Morgan,
Yes.
great. And then Mike Dissett has recused himself, so motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Climbing back in my chair. We've got to take a look at the application list. Hold on a second, I gotta find my. There it is. Okay, so with the addition of the late file, we do have 12. And the one thing that jumps out at me is there are some significant asks on individual projects that pretty much bring up the possible bonding question in order to do a significant funding. Jane, would you like to weigh in? Because I know that jumped out at you as well.
Yeah, I was hoping to get a bond schedule for, or maybe a good breakdown, actually. So it'd probably be a couple different schedules for if the CPC were to bond all of the projects, one of the projects, so individual and then combined, I guess, although I guess we could do the math on our own. Because, if we were to vote to recommend these projects and vote to recommend bonding them, it could take up a significant portion of our future revenues. And so it'd be really important to know that schedule.
Yep, absolutely, Jane. This is Caitlin. I had sent in a request to Ethan Manning, the city's finance director. And so I hope to have that draft for you all by the next meeting.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin, there's also a template out there at the coalition website for a spreadsheet, excuse me, a spreadsheet entitled CPA bonding capacity that can be run each year. That tool would show what our total capacity would be to service X amount of debt in any given year. I think in addition to that, here it would be most helpful for us to have debt service estimates for total recommendation of each of the 3 largest projects here.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes,
It's Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
I totally support what you're saying, and of course, just out of curiosity, are the bonds typically 20-year bonds?
We can recommend what we believe we are willing to recommend to service. So in the past, we've had generally recommended on the longest duration, the 20-year.
20-year, yeah.
In order to have more more money available over and above what we're using to service that debt. But if there's other things going on and other reasons, we can recommend a different duration. Also, in the past, the city has been very sensitive to the bond market and what length of bond you can get for better rates, and also how to package the CPA funded bond with other city bonds to attract a better rate on the market. So they can, if they're sponsoring a bondable project and give us examples, they should also weigh in on recommendations for length. That would be the current bond market. So maybe that's limited by how far in advance or out into the future they can predict the market.
Because, the reason I ask is, the other question as part of that is, we can agree to funding some percentage of these requests. Isn't that also the case?
That's correct.
Because I did a little quick math, and, assuming a 20-year bond and assuming $10 million, which it's a little less than that, 20 years without any interest is 500,000 right there. So a year,
Right.
which is half of our usual budget. So that's why I'm, wondering how this is going to play out.
I think
Yeah,
Mark is, sorry, this is Jane.
No, go ahead, Jane.
I think Mark is bringing up another point that I've been thinking about as well. And I'm not sure when the appropriate time would be, but as a committee, I'd like to visit what we are comfortable with in terms of a percentage of sort of a scheduled payment. So, the 500,000, for instance, I don't know, that sounds like it's around 60% of our estimated revenues just from our property taxes. I'd be interested in a committee discussion on what percentage of our future revenues are we comfortable with committing to bond payments. But I don't know I don't think that's appropriate for tonight, or maybe it is, depends on Mike and everyone, how you feel. But I think it definitely could be a part of the deliberation process.
And plus, we already have some bond debt that we're paying.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, we've got 100 and almost 200,000 next year. So.
Okay, yeah. Because I remember we did something pretty substantial last cycle as well. I don't remember what it was, but yeah.
I think that's a necessary part of our discussion, but the discussion would also be more efficient if we had the numeric examples of what
Yeah.
these applications, how they're going to hit.
I tend to agree.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'd also want to be able to hear from, the Parks Department or the Planning Department as to, if we can't fund the whole thing of any one of those particular projects, where do they get the rest of that funding? It's kind of like a lot of moving pieces, and
Yeah.
we just need to have them all together.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
Good point. Yeah.
We also have the recurring question of whether or not it makes any sense to be able to phase a project, a big
Right.
project. So,
Yeah.
okay. Good. Well, thank you, Caitlin, for reaching out to Ethan to get that information, and we'll have it in hand before we hear the presentations on these large projects. Okay, where are we next? Okay, we have the email from Andy Port Planning Office requesting that in our scheduling, whether or not we can do some acceleration of our typical 3 monthly meetings to go from the first application review to our deliberation meeting. Caitlin, do you want to speak to that request? Anything beyond what it says in the package email that we have?
Oops, I'm muted. Nothing to add beyond, what Andy put in the email. I have started a draft schedule, and I have along with me the city calendars for March and April. So perhaps we could take a look and think about consolidating our review schedule if you all are open to that tonight.
Okay. So
Oops, let's see. So I started working on the draft schedule. Andy Port and Kim Turner of the mayor's office has asked that we keep the Parks Department and Planning Office, large requests on the same night. So I have grouped those together down here at the bottom, and then put the other ones having to deal with affordable housing and historic preservation on the first night. We have Wednesday, March 23rd, basically already set. That's kind of a meeting we were anticipating. And so I guess my next question to everyone is, what are the thoughts on meeting, close to that date instead of at the end of April to consolidate our schedule?
I think it's fine.
yeah, would that have been a regular monthly March meeting
Yes.
date? Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So that's
Yeah,
kind
well,
of already, I think, on the books. Regular kind of standing meeting would be this Wednesday, March 23rd. But the question is, I guess, when can we all find time to kind of, fit in more meetings? I know we're all busy, and then we also have to contend with all the city meetings on our calendars. So
Right.
March 23rd here, you see that's already on our city calendar.
Yep.
Where I have my cursor. I do see an open spot the following Wednesday, March 30th, if we want to meet it, kind of get it all done in 1 week. That's an option.
What about the Wednesday after March 30th?
Yeah,
That's a planning board meeting. We also have April 7th looks open.
Okay. How do you folks look on April 7th?
This is Jane. That works for me.
This is
Okay,
Don
that's-
Walters, works for me.
Yeah, that's Thursday.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
This is Chuck. It works for me.
Great.
Mark, and that's fine.
This is
Okay.
Rachel.
Joe,
You still,
this is Joe works for me.
Great.
you still sticking to the 7 o'clock start?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, works for me.
Okay, so that's great. That was easy. So let's have our, let's have our second meeting date to go over the second portion of the applications on April 7th. And then perhaps we stick to, our April 27th standing meetings for the deliberations.
Mhm.
That will
Yeah.
basically cut our schedule down by a month. And that's pretty
Yep.
good, I think.
yeah, and we all. What's the eight regular April meeting?
The 27th.
27th. Okay. Yeah. Anybody out there not be able to do the 27th?
Okay,
Okay, that sounds good. Caitlin, you'll have to reach out to Tom
Yes, we'll do.
and see about that. Okay. But if, as long as we've got, everybody here tonight, that's a good date.
Okay, great. So we're basically sticking to our schedule, except for adding that April 7th meeting in there to consolidate our schedule. So that's great.
Then
I'll send out the,
it'll be up to Andy to corral the city council then. So.
right. So I'll put this together, get this kind of on the calendar as soon as possible, so no one can take our dates from us.
Yeah.
And I'll try and do that tomorrow. And I will send out the final review schedule tomorrow.
Okay, and then you'll do the outreach to the applicants as well.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and we'll stick with the sequence and dates as you've listed them on this draft schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds
Thank you.
good.
That was easy.
Great,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, okay. The draft budget. Give you an idea of what kind of walking around money we have this year. And it's healthier than years past. Has a lot to do with the healthy match coming in from the state, including the extra that we got from last year as well, which is reflected in the undesignated funds fund balance. I have a question, Caitlin. The open space reserve that was reflected in last year's budget that we were working with was the 629,965. Last year we recommended and got approved a $100,000 addition to the reserve fund. So I'm wondering whether that number here in the reserve fund should be increased by 100,000.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's a good note. I'll check in with the finance department tomorrow and have them generate a revised budget if that makes sense to them. But it
Okay,
sounds like it
yeah,
does.
and double check that I'm not thinking of this wrongly,
Okay.
but I know we were working in our budget last year with the 629.
Okay,
Right.
Okay. Any other questions about the budget? Keep in mind when we go, circle back talking about bonding, the revenue, CPA revenue that can support a bond is limited to that which you that revenue that you receive locally. You cannot commit and support bond with any portion of the state match.
Right.
All right. So you have received the quarterly reports and the staff report that also summarizes them. And if there are, let me ask, are there any questions or comments about that information? Okay, thank you. We have received our annual invoice for the Community Preservation Coalition dues in the same amount as last year, $3,500. I would like to make a motion that we approve the payment of that invoice so that we continue to be members for the upcoming year.
I
Is
second.
there a
the
second? Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Chuck Griffin,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Joe Morgan,
Yes.
Mark Rosen,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
the chair votes yes. Okay, thank you. We have received for review the minutes from October 13th, 2021. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections to that, to those minutes?
Chair DeSette, this is Caitlin, and Rachel can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she received some edits from Don Little, and they are incorporated in this document that I have right here. Is that right, Rachel?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
Did you
thank you,
wanna-
Dawn.
Did you want to quickly point out what they were?
Sure, it's just a couple minor, like a couple little extra words that just needed to be removed, or the spelling, like I had plumping instead of plumbing. So very minor, nothing that changed the content really.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'll move to approve the minutes as submitted. Somebody
I'll
want a second?
second.
Okay, Chuck, thank you. Any further discussion?
Looks like Charles Griffin has his hands up.
Okay, Chuck?
No, I just seconded it. That was-
Oh, okay. Good, then we're moved, seconded, no further discussion. Roll call for those in favor. Chuck Griffin,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little.
Yes.
Joe, I believe since you weren't present at the meeting, we will pass on by.
Yes, I abstain.
Okay, Mark Rosen,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Okay, are there any other? I have no further updates. Jane, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, and is there any other questions, any other discussions, new or old business from any committee member?
No.
Okay, Caitlin, anything more to add?
Nothing more to add. Again, Chuck, do you have your hand up to raise an issue?
excuse me.
Are you raising your hand to bring up a topic to the group?
No, that's old.
Okay, just checking. Good. Okay, nothing
Okay.
further from me, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, we will see everyone then on March 23rd at, that's Wednesday, March 23rd at 7 p.m. Via Zoom, and Caitlin, will you circulate the link as you did this time by email on the date?
Yes, on the date, will do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no further business, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Okay, and I'll take a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
yes,
Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone.
okay.
Good to hear you and see you on the 23rd.
Thank you.
Night.
Mike.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Right.
Mike.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.